There are nights that begin quietly, without warning, and without any sign that they will become unforgettable. Nights that carry the illusion of routine, when the mind is convinced that nothing extraordinary will disturb the calm. For Demet, this was supposed to be one of those nights. A night where the noise of the world, the cameras, the journalists, the endless flashing lights of fame, would finally fade into the background. She thought it would be simple: dinner with friends, soft music, maybe laughter that would mask the emptiness she often felt when she returned home to silence. Nothing more. Nothing less. But that's the trick of life, isn't it? The moments that matter most are rarely planned. They arrive uninvited, unexpected, and they often begin in the places you least expect. That night, as the city of Istanbul glittered under its golden lights and the Bosphorus stretched silently in the distance, Demet had no idea that her life was about to bend, to shift, to change in a way she would never forget. The truth was, people had already buried the story of Demet and Can. The newspapers, the gossip magazines, the social media accounts that lived off of speculation, they had written their ending months ago. They've moved on, they whispered. They're no longer what they used to be. Pictures of Can in Italy, attending events, surrounded by fans and whispers of new romances, filled the feeds. Demet, meanwhile, was seen smiling in interviews, walking confidently into her new projects, pretending that she too had stepped into a future without him. But there was something that no one could capture in a headline: the silence between them. That silence, heavy and unspoken, carried more meaning than words ever could. Fans could sense it. They said, "She still looks for him in the crowd," or "His eyes betray him whenever her name is mentioned." But the world doesn't like silence, it craves stories, closure, answers. And so the world decided for them, their story was over. Demet herself tried to believe it. She told herself she had moved on. That the late-night messages, the long phone calls that once lasted until sunrise, the promises whispered between takes on set, all of it was just a beautiful chapter in a book that had already closed. And yet, when the nights grew too quiet, when her phone lay in her hand with no name lighting up the screen, she knew she was lying to herself. On that night, she expected nothing. Just quiet. Just normal. But fate was writing a script of its own. Because the one person who wasn't supposed to be there, the one person she had convinced herself she would never see again in that way, was about to walk into her life once more. And with that single step, the night that wasn't meant to be anything more than ordinary, became the night that changed everything. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not that night. Not in that place. Not when the world thought they had closed their chapter forever. For weeks, Demet had told herself she was done waiting. She had buried the little rituals that once defined them, checking her phone every few minutes hoping to see his name flash across the screen, replaying old conversations in her head, rehearsing the words she would say if they ever crossed paths again. All of it, gone, or at least hidden beneath layers of pride and pain. She had learned how to walk into a room and smile as if she wasn't broken inside. She had convinced herself that seeing him again was not only impossible but unnecessary. And yet, when the door opened that night, all of those carefully constructed walls crumbled in an instant. The air shifted first. The kind of silence that falls over a room when something unexpected happens. Her friends noticed before she did. A sudden pause in the conversation, eyes darting toward the doorway, and then, there he was. Can standing there like he had every right to be, when in reality he had every reason not to. Why wasn't he supposed to be there? Because it was her night, not theirs. Because the invitation hadn't carried his name. Because after everything that had happened, the fights, the misunderstandings, the unreturned calls, his presence was the last thing she could have imagined. And yet, fate doesn't follow logic. Fate laughs at logic. He hadn't planned to come. That much was clear in his face. He looked as surprised to see her as she was to see him. His expression carried that mixture of hesitation and determination, as if some invisible force had pushed him through the door despite every reason to stay away. Perhaps it was restlessness. Perhaps it was regret. Or perhaps it was simply that strange, unexplainable pull that always seemed to drag him back to her, no matter how far he tried to run. Demet froze. Her laughter died on her lips. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Memories hit her like waves, the first time she saw him smile across the set, the countless late-night drives where they talked about everything and nothing, the day they promised they would never hurt each other. And yet, here they were, standing in the wreckage of those broken promises. The room around them blurred. People kept talking, music kept playing, glasses clinked in the background, but for Demet and Can, the world had narrowed into a single line of vision, just the two of them, locked in silence. And in that silence, everything was louder than words. The questions, the regrets, the unsaid apologies, all of it screamed between them without a single sound. He wasn't supposed to be there. And yet, he came. He came when she had finally convinced herself he wouldn't. He came when she had decided her life no longer had space for him. He came, and everything changed. The sound of the door opening was nothing unusual. People came and went all the time, and Demet barely paid attention, until she saw the way the room suddenly shifted. Conversations paused, a faint silence fell, and then her eyes followed everyone else's. That's when she saw him. Can. He was framed by the doorway like a scene from a film, one hand still on the handle, as if he wasn't sure whether to stay or leave. He didn't belong there, and both of them knew it. The invitation hadn't been his. The timing wasn't his. After months of silence and distance, the last thing Demet expected was to see him walking back into her life so casually, so suddenly. Her breath caught in her throat. Around her, people kept moving, glasses clinked, music played, but none of it mattered anymore. The entire room blurred into background noise, leaving only the two of them frozen in a silence that said more than words ever could. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't playing the confident star the world knew. Instead, he looked almost hesitant, as if even he couldn't explain why he had come. But there was something else there too, determination. As though some invisible pull had dragged him through that door no matter how hard he had tried to stay away. Demet's heart raced. She remembered everything she had tried to bury, the late-night talks, the promises they had whispered, the last phone call that ended in silence. She remembered how many times she had told herself he wouldn't come back. And yet, here he was. Ken took a step inside. Just one. And that single step broke the wall of distance she had been building for months. Her friends exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the electricity in the air, but no one dared interrupt. Finally, he spoke. His voice wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. Just one word. Hi. Such a simple word. But in that single syllable lived every apology he hadn't said, every question left unanswered, every regret unspoken. Demet's lips parted, but no sound came out. She wanted to ask 1,000 things. Why are you here? Why tonight? Why now, after all this time? But all she could do was stare, her heart betraying the calm expression she tried to hold. He wasn't supposed to be there. And yet he was. And in that moment, Demet realized, sometimes the nights you try hardest to avoid are the ones destiny refuses to let you escape. The moment after his voice faded, the room seemed to collapse into silence. That single hi hung in the air like an echo that refused to disappear. Demet's heart pounded, louder than the music, louder than the laughter around them. She felt every eye in the room flickering between her and Can, but to her, it was as if they were suddenly alone, two people stranded in a space that wasn't meant for them anymore. He took another slow step inside. She didn't move. Her breath was sharp, her body stiff, but her eyes betrayed her, they couldn't look away from him. For months she had practiced this moment in her mind. If he ever comes back, I'll be strong. I won't let him see me break. Yet now, with him standing just a few feet away, all those rehearsed lines vanished. The silence between them grew heavier. It wasn't the silence of strangers. It was the silence of people who had once known every detail of each other's lives, every habit, every weakness, every dream, and now carried the unbearable weight of words they had never said. Can's gaze softened, but there was pain there too. He looked at her like a man who had traveled too far only to realize he had been walking in the wrong direction the entire time. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. There were no right words. Not yet. Demet finally found her voice, though it trembled when it came out. Why are you here? It wasn't an attack. It wasn't even anger. It was confusion layered with the rawness of someone who had been waiting for an answer far too long. He hesitated. His jaw tightened. His eyes lowered for a second, then came back to hers with an honesty that felt almost dangerous. I don't know, he admitted. All I know is, I couldn't stay away tonight. Her chest tightened at those words. She wanted to believe him, God, she wanted to, but the storm of memories made it impossible to surrender so easily. The nights of waiting, the unanswered messages, the moments she felt like she meant everything and nothing to him at the same time, those scars still burned. The storm was inside her now. One part of her screamed to turn away, to walk out, to protect the pieces she had managed to put back together. Another part whispered to stay, to listen, to believe that maybe, just maybe, his presence meant something more than regret. The silence stretched again. The world around them blurred once more into irrelevance. It was just the two of them, staring across a fragile distance that could either be closed with one step, or widened forever if one of them turned away. And then, in the quietest of voices, Can spoke again. Demet, please. Just give me a moment. His words weren't rehearsed. They weren't polished. They were raw, uncertain, and almost pleading. And in that second, Demet realized the storm wasn't only hers. He was battling one too. The silence between them had grown unbearable. It was heavy, almost alive, pressing down on both of them until it felt like the walls themselves might collapse. Demet's chest rose and fell too quickly, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She wanted to speak, to demand answers, to end this strange limbo, but the words refused to come. It was Can who broke first. He swallowed hard, his throat visibly tightening before his voice finally pushed through the storm. I thought staying away was the right thing, he said quietly, his eyes fixed on hers. I told myself you'd be better without me, that I'd only make things harder if I came back. The words were simple, but they cut deep. Demet's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to scream that he was wrong, that his silence had been worse than any fight, that the hardest part hadn't been losing him, it had been wondering if he ever cared at all. But before she could speak, his voice cracked again, this time more desperate, more raw. I tried, Demet. I tried to move on. I tried to convince myself I could forget. But every night, no matter where I was, no matter who I was with, it was always you. Her throat tightened. Her eyes burned. She blinked quickly, but the tears threatened to escape anyway. This was the confession she had imagined in her loneliest nights, the words she had dreamed of hearing when she couldn't sleep. Yet now that they were here, real, spoken, undeniable, they hurt more than she had ever prepared for. She forced herself to answer, her voice trembling. Then why didn't you come sooner? Why let me believe you were gone for good? The question sliced through him. He looked down, his jaw tight, his hands flexing as if searching for something to hold on to. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I was a coward. Because I thought I could protect you by staying silent. But the truth is, I was only protecting myself. The honesty shattered her. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't some carefully crafted apology. It was raw truth, the kind that didn't beg for forgiveness but still demanded to be felt. A tear slipped down her cheek, betraying the strength she had fought so hard to maintain. She quickly wiped it away, but Can saw. He always saw. His expression softened, pained, almost broken at the sight of her trying not to break. He took one step closer. Just one. Close enough for her to feel his presence, close enough for her body to remember what it had been like when he was always near. Demet, he whispered, his voice unsteady. I don't know if I deserve a second chance. But I do know this, I can't leave tonight without telling you that I never stopped, not for a single day. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her chest heaved as another tear slid down, then another. She hated that he could still do this to her. She hated that his voice, his presence, his confession could still shatter every wall she had built. For a moment, neither of them moved. The storm inside her clashed violently with the storm inside him, and in that fragile, trembling silence, it felt like the entire night was holding its breath. For a long moment, the world seemed to stop. Demet stood frozen, her tears betraying everything she had tried so hard to hide. Can's words lingered between them like fragile glass, delicate, dangerous, impossible to ignore. He hadn't promised forever. He hadn't asked for forgiveness. He had only spoken the truth. And sometimes the truth was heavier than any promise. She wanted to speak. To tell him how much his silence had hurt. To tell him that there were nights when she waited by the phone until morning, whispering his name into the darkness, wondering if he was thinking of her too. She wanted to say that she hated him for leaving, for making her feel like she didn't matter. But more than anything, she wanted to tell him that even now, even after everything, her heart still betrayed her every time she looked at him. But the words wouldn't come. Only silence. A silence that burned, but also healed in ways she couldn't explain. Ken took another step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. He didn't touch her. He didn't dare. But the closeness was enough to remind her of what it once felt like, to stand beside him and believe the world could fall apart as long as they were together. Demet, he whispered again, softer now, almost afraid of breaking her completely. If I leave tonight and this is the last time I ever see you, I want you to know I never stopped loving you. Her breath hitched. She closed her eyes, fighting back another wave of tears. Those were the words she had ached for, prayed for, dreamed of hearing. And yet, in this moment, they felt both like a gift and a wound. The night was no longer ordinary. It was no longer just another page in their separate stories. It had become a turning point, a moment that would follow them forever. Whether they rebuilt what was lost or walked away for good, nothing would ever be the same again. And as she finally opened her eyes and looked at him, Demet realized the truth. Sometimes, the nights that were never meant to happen are the ones destiny writes for us anyway. He wasn't supposed to be there. But he came. And that single choice changed everything.